Hello again. This new video, I would like to actually take a pause and talk about symptoms. The symptoms of Pseudotumor Cerebri or Idiopathic Intracranial Hypertension, because I think it is very important to discuss what commonalities we might have, especially at the beginning. When I first began to experience headaches, they were brutal headaches. And my understanding is that many of us can have different areas of the headaches. I want to explain that my headaches have usually been towards the top of my head, and it felt like a pressure, wanting to just push the top of my head off. I've seen many other friends and patients. I don't like that word, patients, but patients have described it as differently, which I completely understand. The typical headache is not a migraine type headache. Again, don't forget, I am not a doctor. I am not speaking as a doctor doing these videos. I am speaking only from a patient perspective. Whenever I say I have heard other people, this is from either talking to other patients that have or are presently suffering from Pseudotumor cerebri. This is just pure anecdotal. Just want to make sure that that's very, very clear. So headache is one of the main symptoms known as belonging to this condition, and it's part of why it is so difficult to diagnose, because headaches can mean many things and can come from many things. Just as an FYI and a side note, I've never had what is known as a migraine, fortunately. I also suffer from cluster headaches. Cluster headaches are horrible. I have had fever headaches. I have had several other types of headaches. Like I presently have extremely bad occipital nerve damage headaches. Wouldn't quite consider it a headache, but due to one of the surgeries. So I can actually very much pinpoint, and I'm very fortunate to have a neurologist that completely trusts that if I walk in the door and I say I have a high pressure pseudotumor headache, she trusts me. If I say I've had a spinal tap and I have a low pressure pseudotumor headache, she trusts me. If I say no, this is not pseudotumor, this is a cluster headache, she goes, okay, we know what we're treating. Fortunately, sometimes it can be very difficult to pinpoint the type of headache one is experiencing. Tinnitus is another one of the big symptoms for Pseudotumor cerebri. So headaches, tinnitus. Tinnitus is basically ringing in the ear. It can happen on your right ear. That would be your other side. On your left ear or both ears. Sometimes you can be experiencing it in just your right side, for example, for months at a time. And then it can travel and just happen on the other side for months or weeks at a time. It is not uncommon for it to travel. Tinnitus is the actual fluid. It's what you're hearing is the whooshing sound of the fluid going into your head, because it is actually massive. There's such motion of fluid going into your head that it is moving, and that is what tinnitus. That's the scientific part of tinnitus. Doctors have been known to put an oscilloscope. I can't remember the word. What they used to listen to the heart. it's funny. See, cognitive issues. That's another one. And they are able to listen to tinnitus themselves. So another symptom which is very common is neck pain, neck tension. This one actually was not known when I was diagnosed in 1992. So when I started complaining of neck tension, which I was not aware right away, they said, oh, it must just be you're tired. When I complained again several years later, they said, well, this is a known symptom of Pseudotumor Cerebri. So it's interesting how, in my case, I have been ahead of the research. I have been complaining of symptoms and been told, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. So I have now learned to say something or make a statement, been denied, and to sort of take it in with a smile, just to know that I'm right, and it will. That's for you to know in the future. Fortunately, like I said, I have a team now that is quite open and listens. Tiredness, so being weak, is it's another symptom. It's not one of the most significant issues or symptoms, but you will find yourself to be quite tired and not why. Again, that's another symptom that could belong to many conditions. I mean, MS makes you tired. So it's very difficult to say, well, hey, you're tired, you must have Pseudotumor Cerebri. Cognitive issues. In other words, you will forget things. Lucky you. I have, this is a typical example. I have been sitting in the car with my husband, and he has said, he was driving, and I have asked him, hun, where are we going? And he said, we're going to the supermarket, remember? And I went, oh, that's wonderful. I didn't know. So we had talked about going to the supermarket the night before. We had planned it. That day we had talked about it. We obviously walked and got into the car discussing going to the supermarket. We had done a supermarket list. And yet I sat in the car, and all of a sudden I went completely blanked. And actually I can't tell you, for seconds, 2 minutes, I was completely unaware where I was going. I trusted my husband, but I was completely unaware where we were going. This is the same issue with processing, with forgetting how to manage words. I will say a word and be completely convinced that I said the right word, just to realize that I changed one word for another. I can't remember words. Please understand, I have a PhD. So the change for me was so abrupt that it was startling. This has been one of the hardest things for me. At the beginning, my husband got very mad at me. He thought I was not listening to him, until it was a neurologist who said, you're having cognitive problems. We need to test you. And I was proven correctly. Thank goodness. But again, it was very, very difficult for me. Problems with falling. I have an unsteady gait, especially turning to the left. It's grown to the point where right now I'm falling twice a day. And the last symptom that I want to bring up is that I am, unfortunately, and this is very late. This is a symptom that comes on very late in Pseudotumor Cerebri, but there's an issue of incontinence. And I am not going to be graphical here, but it is both ways, just so you know. It is not just the typical elderly incontinence, but it's both ways. I am at the early stages, and it actually, in my case, moves very slowly, but that is an issue. Don't forget that what I have been told, what I have been preview knowledge of, is that your brain basically is being squeezed by the extra fluid around it. So then that means that your body, neurologically, is up for grabs. There are symptoms that are happening that you will be suffering from.